The funny thing about forgotten birthdays is that they start just like any other day, which is exactly how you know they're forgotten. I woke up that Thursday morning in my Tucson apartment to my phone alarm, not a single text notification lighting up the screen. October 15th. I'm Melissa, and I just turned 32, though you wouldn't know it from the silence. I wanted proof someone saw me today. Just one small sign. I took a deep breath. Okay, I can do today. The coffee maker sighed and gurgled its usual morning greeting, the only acknowledgement that today was any different from yesterday. I'd stopped expecting much from birthdays somewhere around 27 when adult life had worn down the shine of cake and candles into something more like a reminder of time passing. But still, you'd think someone would remember. Your mom, at least. Maybe your sister. Definitely your best friend who'd been there for every birthday since college. But phones can be funny things. Maybe mine was broken. Maybe everyone was planning to surprise me later. Maybe I'd somehow gotten the date wrong, though the calendar on my refrigerator, the one with rescue dogs that my coworker Amy gave everyone last Christmas, clearly showed October 15th circled in faded blue pen. A circle I'd drawn myself back in January, when October felt impossibly far away. I made my usual breakfast: scrambled eggs that I'd probably overcooked, toast that was slightly too dark on one side, coffee that needed more cream than I had left. The smell of slightly burnt toast filled my small kitchen. The apartment felt extra quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your eardrums. Even my neighbor's usually yapping chihuahua was silent. The fridge hummed. The room felt like it was holding its breath. So did I. The drive to work was unremarkable. Same route down Speedway Boulevard, same red light that lasted forever at Campbell, same parking spot in the back corner of the lot where the mesquite tree dropped pods on my windshield. I worked at Desert Bloom Library and had for 8 years now, long enough that the smell of old books and lemon cleaner felt like home. The tile felt cool under my shoes. The air smelled like dust and lemon. "Morning, Mel," called Janet from the circulation desk, not looking up from her computer. "Can you handle the morning story time? Rebecca called in sick." "Sure," I said, hanging my jacket in the break room, checking my phone one more time. Nothing. Well, one notification. My phone carrier reminding me my bill was due. Happy birthday to me. Story time was usually my favorite part of the job. As I read The Very Hungry Caterpillar to 20 or so preschoolers, a boy asked, "Do butterflies get birthdays too?" I smiled. "Yes," I said, "we all do." But today, while they shouted out what came next, I felt the weight of 32 quiet years pressing down. "And he was a beautiful butterfly," little Sophia yelled before I could turn the last page. "That's right," I said, forcing enthusiasm into my voice. "He became something beautiful." I wanted that to be true for me. After the kids cleared out, leaving behind the usual trail of crushed goldfish crackers and one lonely sock, I was reshelving picture books when I heard it. Singing. Soft at first, then growing stronger. Not happy birthday. That would have been too on the nose for my apparently forgotten day. This was something else, something in Spanish coming from the reading room. I followed the sound around the corner and stopped short. An elderly man sat at one of our wooden tables, surrounded by what looked like every craft supply our library owned. Construction paper, glue sticks, markers, and... was that glitter? Definitely glitter. He was folding paper with precise movements, creating what appeared to be paper flowers, all while singing in a voice that belonged in a cathedral. He looked up when my shadow fell across his work, and his face split into the kind of smile that made you believe in things. "Ah, perfecta," he said. "Just the person I need. Come sit. These old fingers need younger ones to help." "I'm sorry, sir, but the craft supplies are supposed to be for the children's programs." "Nonsense," he interrupted, but gently, like a grandfather overruling a silly rule. "Today we make beauty. You help. What's your name?" I should have protested. I had a cart of books waiting for me, but something in his eyes, a kind of gentle command, made me sit down instead. "Melissa," I found myself saying, already sitting down across from him. Something about his certainty made resistance feel pointless. "I'm Eduardo," he said, sliding a piece of bright yellow paper toward me. "And today we make marigolds. Cempasúchil, you know this flower?" I shook my head, picking up the paper. It was surprisingly soft, not like our usual construction paper at all. The crisp paper made a satisfying crackle with each fold. Fold, press, breathe. The flower began to wake up in my hands. Then I teach. Fold like this." His weathered hands demonstrated, creating a precise crease. "Marigolds are for Dia de los Muertos, yes, but also for celebration. For remembering that life is beautiful, even when it feels forgotten." That word, forgotten, made me look up sharply, but Eduardo was focused on his flower, humming now instead of singing. "Why today?" I asked, following his folding instructions. "Why are you making these today?" He smiled without looking up. "Today is a special day. My Rosa, she would have been 75 today. We make flowers for the people who can't be here to receive real ones." My hands stilled on the paper. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Loss?" He chuckled, a warm sound like coffee percolating. No, not loss. Transformation. Like your hungry caterpillar, see? Rosa is not lost. She's just elsewhere. But birthdays, they still matter. We still celebrate." His voice was calm. I believed him. We worked in silence for a few minutes, and somehow my fingers found the rhythm. Fold, crease, fold again. The paper began to transform into something that actually resembled a marigold. Around us, the library hummed with its usual morning sounds. The copy machine whirring, someone's cell phone playing that default ringtone, Janet laughing at something. "You know what Rosa used to say?" Eduardo asked, attaching another petal to his growing bouquet. "She said birthdays aren't about getting older, they're about proof." Proof? Proof that you survived another year. Proof that you're still here to see the sun come up. Proof that your story isn't finished. He held up his completed flower, golden and perfect, despite being made of paper. He patted my hand. "Every birthday is a victory lap, mija. A little party for making it through." Birthdays are proof we're still here. Proof we still matter. I tucked those words in my pocket. The endearment, mija, hit something soft in me. My own grandfather used to call me that, before he passed 5 years ago. 5 birthdays ago, actually. He'd never missed one until then. "Here," Eduardo said, standing with more agility than his age suggested. "We've made enough. Now we distribute." Distribute? But he was already gathering the flowers, we'd made at least 2 dozen without me realizing it, into a basket he pulled out from under the table. Come, Thursday is a good day for surprises." I should have protested. I had work to do, books to shelve, a reading program to plan. But something about Eduardo's certainty pulled me along. I grabbed my library badge and followed him out into the main area. "This one," he said, approaching the reference desk where Marcus, our newest librarian, was frowning at his computer. "Needs yellow for new beginnings." He placed the bright marigold next to Marcus's keyboard. Marcus looked up, startled, then his face softened. "Oh, thank you. How did you know today was my first day solo on the desk?" Eduardo just winked and moved on. At the children's section, he gave a purple flower to a mother wrestling with twin toddlers. "Purple for strength," he told her. She nearly cried. We made our way through the library like that, Eduardo somehow knowing exactly who needed which color. The teenager studying for her SATs got orange for courage. She tucked it into her notebook. "Thanks," she said. "I needed brave today." The businessman who'd been laid off and came here every day to job hunt on our computers received red for power. He sat up a little straighter, like the color helped his shoulders. Hope can be small. Sometimes it's the size of a paper petal. Each person looked surprised, then grateful, then somehow lighter. A part of me thought this was strange, but another part, the part that felt so forgotten, watched with a growing sense of wonder. "How do you know?" I asked as we neared the biography section. "How do you know what they need?" "I look," he said simply. "Faces are like pages. Most people just forget to read. Like you need pink." "Pink?" For sweetness returning. He handed me a rose-colored flower I didn't remember making. "And for birthdays that feel forgotten but aren't." I stopped walking. "How did you—" "Your co-worker at the desk, Janet? She whispered to the other one about forgetting to bring the cake she promised for your birthday. She feels terrible. But you know what? Cake is just sugar and flour. This," he gestured at the trail of paper flowers we'd left throughout the library, "this is better." I looked back the way we'd come. Every person we'd given a flower to was smiling. Marcus had his tucked behind his ear. The mother had given hers to one of her twins who was now trying to eat it. The businessman had positioned his carefully on his laptop, like a talisman. "But they don't even know it's my birthday," I said, my voice smaller than I intended. "Don't they?" Eduardo asked. "Look again." And I did. And I saw Janet hurrying toward us with Amy and 2 other coworkers, carrying a grocery store cake with "Sorry this is late" written in wobbly frosting. I saw the businessman closing his laptop to join the gathering crowd. I saw the teenager abandoning her SAT prep. Even the twins' mother was herding her chaos in our direction. "Surprise?" Janet said weakly, holding up the cake. "I'm so sorry, Mel. The cake was in my car and my brain just, poof, gone. And then Mr. Eduardo here said we couldn't just have cake, we needed flowers first." "Wait," I interrupted. "You knew each other?" Eduardo chuckled. "I've been coming to this library for 40 years, mija. I know everyone, and everyone knows that birthdays need more than cake. They need—" "Community," said Marcus, still wearing his yellow flower. "Joy," added the mother, her twins now each clutching a paper petal. "Unexpected kindness," the businessman said, carefully holding his red marigold. "Really bad singing," Janet admitted, and then started the most off-key rendition of Happy Birthday I'd ever heard. Everyone joined in, even people I didn't know, drawn by the commotion. The singing was terrible, gloriously, beautifully terrible. I laughed and cried at the same time. It sounded messy and real. Eduardo pressed something into my hand while they sang. Another flower, this one made of multiple colors twisted together. "This one is special," he whispered. "Rosa's favorite combination. She called it all the feelings at once." The song ended with applause and laughter. Janet cut the cake with a plastic knife from the break room, apologizing for the uneven pieces. Amy had apparently raided the vending machine and contributed every candy bar she could afford. Someone had made coffee in the good pot, the one we saved for author visits. The frosting was too sweet. I loved it. "Speech," Marcus called out, because apparently he was that kind of person. I stood there, holding my multicolored flower, looking at this improvised party that had materialized out of nowhere. Or not nowhere. Out of one old man's determination that no birthday should pass uncelebrated. I started, then had to stop because my throat was doing that tight thing. This morning I thought everyone had forgotten, and maybe they did, but then Eduardo reminded me that forgotten things can be found again, that birthdays aren't about who remembers the date. They're about— I looked at him for help. "About proof," he finished for me. "Proof that you matter. Proof that your story touches other stories. Proof that a library on a Thursday morning can become a celebration hall if you let it." The businessman, Robert, I learned, cleared his throat. "I got laid off on my birthday 2 months ago. Worst day of my life. But I've been coming here every day since, and you know what? You all have helped me more than you know. The free computer classes, the resume workshop, just the smile at the desk every morning. He raised his coffee cup. To birthdays that remind us we're not alone. To birthdays, everyone echoed, raising cups and half-eaten cake pieces. People tapped their cups on the tables like tiny bells. The party, because that's what it had become, lasted another hour. People drifted in and out, drawn by the laughter and staying for the cake. The SAT teenager turned out to be a poet and recited something about butterflies that made Eduardo nod approvingly. The twins performed what their mother generously called a dance, but looked more like enthusiastic jumping. When things finally calmed down, I found Eduardo back at his table making more flowers. "Thank you," I said, sitting beside him, "for all of this. But how did you really know?" He smiled, his hands never stopping their folding. "Your library card renewal form. You filled it out last week at my volunteer desk. Birth date is required." He winked. "But also you had that look, the 'is this all there is?' look. Rosa had it once, on her 40th birthday. So I made her flowers. Paper ones because we were poor. She said they were better than roses because they lasted longer and proved that beautiful things can come from ordinary materials." "Tell me about her," I said, picking up paper to help. So he did. For the next hour, Eduardo told me about Rosa, who loved butterflies and marigolds and libraries, who believed every person's birthday should be a national holiday, who died 2 years ago but lived in every flower he made, every story he told, every birthday he refused to let pass unnoticed. "She would have liked you," he said finally. "A librarian who reads stories to children, she would have adopted you immediately." My desk looked like a small garden. The room felt brighter. It felt like morning again. By the time my shift ended, my desk was covered in paper flowers. But more than that, my phone was full of messages. Turns out my mom had been trying to call all day, but her new phone wasn't working properly. My sister had sent an email to an old address. My best friend Kelly had the date wrong in her calendar but sent a long, rambling voice message about how much she loved me anyway. But even if those messages had never come, it wouldn't have mattered, because Eduardo had taught me something more valuable than remembering dates. He'd shown me that celebration isn't about who remembers. It's about who shows up when you need them, even if they didn't know you needed them. As I was leaving, he pressed one last flower into my hand. This one was different. Smaller, more intricate, with writing on each petal. "Rosa's recipe for marigold cookies," he explained, "for next year, or next week, or whenever you need to remember that ordinary ingredients can make extraordinary things." I drove home with my car full of paper flowers, grocery store cake, and vending machine candy. My apartment didn't feel quiet anymore. It felt full of possibility. I had proof. Today had changed because people showed up. That night, I called my mom back. We talked for 2 hours about everything and nothing. I texted my sister. I sent Kelly a photo of my flower collection. And then I did something I hadn't done in years. I made plans for my next birthday. Not big plans, just plans to be at the library, making paper flowers with Eduardo, celebrating whoever needed celebrating. Because that's what Rosa knew, what Eduardo taught me, what I learned on my 32nd birthday. We're all hungry caterpillars, consuming days and experiences and small kindnesses, waiting to transform into something beautiful. And birthdays? They're not about getting older. They're about proving we're still becoming. The marigold cookie recipe is taped to my refrigerator now, right next to the rescue dog calendar. Every time I see it, I remember. Not the morning when I thought I was forgotten, but the afternoon when I learned I never was. Not by the people who mattered, not by the strangers who became friends, not by the old man who knew that birthdays aren't dates on a calendar, but excuses to make the world a little brighter. 32 turned out to be a very good year. But then again, when you know how to make paper flowers and have friends who sing off key and eat grocery store cake with plastic forks in a public library, Every year has the potential to be extraordinary. Eduardo still comes in every Thursday. We make flowers for birthdays, anniversaries, just because it's Tuesday days. The library has become known for it. People come in looking tired and leave carrying paper marigolds, roses, daisies. Janet keeps a special shelf of craft supplies just for us now. And every October 15th, no matter what, I make yellow flowers for new beginnings, for proof of survival, for the birthday that taught me that being forgotten is just another way of being found. Last week, a young man came into the library, sitting alone at a corner table. I looked at him and saw myself from that morning. That same quiet sadness. That same look that asked, "Is this all there is?" Eduardo nudged me. "Your turn, mija." So I gathered my paper and scissors and sat down across from him. "Want to learn to make something beautiful?" I asked. He looked surprised, then suspicious. Then, when I started folding, curious. His name was James. It was his 25th birthday. His girlfriend had just left him. He hated his job, and his family lived 3 states away. "Perfect," I told him, just as Eduardo would have. "Purple is for strength. Now let me show you. You fold it like this." And so it continues. Eduardo's legacy, Rosa's flowers, my story, all twisted together like that first multicolored marigold. Because birthdays aren't about who remembers, they're about who celebrates. And in a library in Tucson, with paper and glue and terrible singing, we celebrate everyone. Even, especially, the ones who think they've been forgotten. Because nobody's really forgotten. Sometimes they just need someone to hand them a flower and remind them they're worth remembering. If today is your birthday, or close enough, this one is for you. You matter. Here's your proof.